My reckless Tinder date revealed my infidelity and shattered my marriage overnight. Welcome to another episode of Heartbreak Confessions. Today we listen to a powerful story that uncovers the harsh realities of betrayal. Together, we'll navigate the tumultuous waters of love and loss, finding strength in shared experiences. My illicit affair had me trapped inside a dimly lit bathroom, the sharp edges of my reality cutting deep as I confronted the aftermath of my decisions. The note he left for Ethan was a searing reminder of the chaos I had invited into my life. What was I thinking? My sisters had repeatedly cautioned me against those insidious dating apps, but I brushed off their warnings, convinced that a little excitement was just what I needed. I believed it would be a harmless escape, yet that reckless fun cost me everything, my marriage and a shred of self-respect. I concealed the truth about my relationship from my date, and when he unraveled my lies, he turned vengeful. His callousness was shocking. I now deeply regret ever crossing paths with him. I still can't fathom why he felt compelled to enact such a cruel reprisal. Just yesterday, Ethan delivered the most humiliating moment of my life, all born out of my betrayal. He exposed my infidelity without hesitation, and locking me in that bathroom felt like the ultimate act of retribution. Words fail to express the depth of shame I'm grappling with. I can hardly keep my eyes open in the heavy weight of it all. I never anticipated things spiraling to this extent. The thought that anyone might discover my transgressions seemed unfathomable. Lady Luck certainly hasn't been on my side, and now everything is laid bare. I'm sharing my plight here, desperate for guidance on how to salvage my marriage before it slips away entirely. I'm parched for understanding, and I know the judgment will rain down. But at this point, I've got nothing left to lose. Allow me to introduce myself properly. My name is Lila, and despite being a 27-year-old with a degree in nutrition, I own a clothing boutique, a venture that truly ignites my passion. I've been married for 4 years to my childhood companion, Ethan, a dedicated architect who frequently immerses himself in his work at various projects around the city. We grew up together just a year apart, cultivating a bond that eventually led us to the altar. But the thrill of our youthful friendship feels light years away. With that said, I understand the barrage of questions that will arise regarding my foray into the world of online dating and the choices that led me to betray Ethan. So let's lay it all out. My intentions in marrying Ethan were never influenced by financial motives. That's not who I am. I've earned my keep through hard work, and deception is foreign to my character. I never envisioned stepping outside the boundaries of our vows. Ethan has been my confidant since childhood. I thought we were ideally suited for a life together. Yet, as the years rolled by, I began to see that our friendship was far brighter than our marriage, which feels stagnant and uninspiring. Honestly, it took an entire 4 years for me to confront the reality that I craved more than what we had. Ethan and I are both busy individuals. I understand his commitment to his career, just as he respects mine. But that's not the crux of my discontent. The truth is, I long for a partnership where passion reigns, where my husband is a partner by my side, not just a familiar friend. I fear judgment for admitting this, but I need to voice my truth. Even my sisters dismissed my feelings, claiming they weren't worthy of discussion. Furthermore, Ethan and I have struggled with starting a family since our 2nd year of marriage. After countless visits to specialists and enduring some hopeful moments, I endured a heartbreaking miscarriage a year and a half ago. It plunged us into a dark chapter, yet we committed ourselves to healing before resuming our journey to parenthood. While I refuse to use my miscarriage as a scapegoat for my transgressions, it's a fact that remains woven into our shared history. Although that pain has transformed with time, the dullness of our marriage never lifted. I found myself increasingly irritable, suffocated by the monotony that I can no longer endure. As I sit reflecting on these trials, I recall a moment just days before my indiscretion. The wind danced through the curtains of my loft as I tried on a new dress. The vibrant colors mirrored a spirit longing to break free, highlighted against the backdrop of my neglected dreams. I threw on pieces that felt aspirational, imagining myself stepping into a world where I was cherished, excited, and alive. Each outfit felt like a cry for help until I found myself swiping right, hoping to explore realms of connection I thought had gone silent. Now I sit, wrapped in the despair of my choices, wondering if I'll manage to reclaim the life I once cherished. I've spent my entire life intimately connected to only one man, and that's Ethan. But recently, I felt this burning urge to explore what being with different men might feel like. I can honestly say I felt trapped in that marriage, drowning in the mundane routines. So I took a leap, thinking it was my only way out. Regret? That's an understatement. Right now, I'm living in the chaos I've created, and it's haunting me. My Tinder date has become a catalyst for my downfall, and my animosity for him continues to grow deeper. I can hardly fathom that he had the audacity to interfere with my life, let alone leave a note for Ethan. What provoked him to do that? I feel utterly blindsided. My entire world is shattering, and while I can accept my part in this mess, I also know that he bears responsibility for his actions. He claims he had his reasons, but I can't bring myself to accept them as valid. The malaise in my marriage had been building for a long while, but it was a series of unexpected events that ultimately propelled me toward infidelity. I made a choice that I thought was mine alone, never entertaining the idea of using a dating app. It all started when I visited my friend Nina months ago. She casually asked about my married life, and I responded with a flippant remark about how overrated I found the whole concept of marriage. To my surprise, she echoed my sentiments, sharing her own disdain. As we dove deeper into that conversation, she mentioned Tinder. Initially, I was adamant about not wanting to cheat on Ethan, dismissing the idea entirely. A part of me knew that I was already leaning toward infidelity, but I pretended ignorance, even disliking the notion of using an app like Tinder. Yet her insistence toyed with my thoughts. She encouraged me to give it a chance, assuring me I wouldn't regret it. The concept was foreign to me, and I spent countless hours mulling over the idea. I became consumed with questions. Was it worth the risk? Would it be the right move? Days turned into sleepless nights. And finally, I confided in my sisters, who are practically my confidants as well. When I revealed my intention to join Tinder, their reactions were visceral. They couldn't fathom why I would choose to jeopardize my marriage. I tried to twist my feelings into something comprehensible for them, feigning sadness and claiming depression. This moment of deception laid bare my own shame. I recognized then that my actions were calculated and premeditated. Consequently, despite the whirlwind of chaos that ensued, I've never told Ethan it was a misstep. I understand it would be a blatant lie. My sisters did everything to sway me, but I remain resolute, convinced that I was justified in exploring outside my marriage. Some might speculate that I rushed into marrying Ethan, but I was the one who advocated for our union. I believed that our friendship would naturally extend into marriage. But, regrettably, the reality was starkly different. The more I attempted to explore, the more frenzied the need became, wrapping me in desperation. After hours of futile persuasion, my sisters finally fell silent, their warnings echoing in my mind, but falling on deaf ears. Now, I wish I had taken their advice to heart, or perhaps even sought help from a therapist before veering into this wreckage that threatens to unravel everything I once held dear. Just then, my phone buzzed, interrupting my spiraling thoughts. It was Nina again, this time suggesting we meet at that eclectic art gallery cafe downtown. The vibrant colors and bohemian atmosphere had always appealed to me, juxtaposing the dreariness of my situation. I hesitated, feeling a mix of dread and excitement. Maybe she could provide the clarity I desperately sought. Grabbing my quirky purse, I glanced at myself in the mirror, my artistic flair hidden beneath the weight of shame. As I stepped out of my urban loft, the crisp air washed over me, stirring both anxiety and anticipation. Little did I know that this outing would lead to a revelation that would change everything. So, my friends, I took the plunge and created a profile on a dating app, despite all the caution flags waving in my mind. I carefully concealed my marital status, labeling myself as single and seeking. The idea was to connect with a man who could stir some excitement in my otherwise monotonous life. I even opted for a pseudonym, crafting an entirely fictitious persona, which lent an air of anonymity to my digital escapade. But the initial foray into this world wasn't quite the fantasy I dreamed of. Perhaps my eagerness clouded my judgment. Countless matches flooded in, yet none caught my attention. Most were either older or already tied down, searching for something serious, which was absolutely not what I craved. I was only looking for a light-hearted escape, a fling to spark my dormant spirit. Fast forward a few days, and out of the blue, A match appeared who aligned with my desires. A connection sparked, and I initiated our conversation with enthusiasm. Before long, we were immersed in dialogue, exchanging messages that stretched into the night, delving into subjects like our careers, hobbies, and life stories. Throughout it all, I chose to keep my marriage under wraps. The man was named Derek, an adventurous entrepreneur of 28 years. From what I gathered, he was genuinely single, aiming for a connection that promised romance. Admittedly, I may have misled him about my situation, but the thrill of it all overshadowed my conscience. When Derek discovered the truth, he was understandably furious, feeling deceived enough to confront my husband directly. After several days of online banter, we finally arranged to meet in person. Our busy schedules made it challenging to secure a time, but we eventually decided on a quaint art gallery cafe tucked away in the heart of the city. I meticulously chose this spot to minimize the risk of running into anyone I recognized. It happened to be a Saturday afternoon, and Ethan had left to meet an old college friend, unwittingly clearing my path. I breathed a sigh of relief, grateful for his absence. On the day of our rendezvous, Derek arrived at the cafe ahead of me. Little did he know how I felt, exhilarated and anxious all at once. The thrill of finally pursuing my long-held yearning clashed with the fear of the unknown, leaving my stomach churning in anticipation. Though I had been on dates before, this was different. It marked my first time stepping out with someone since I tied the knot. Guilt nagged at me like a persistent shadow, but the thrill overwhelmed any reservations. As I approached the cafe, I paused and inhaled deeply, steeling myself for what lay ahead. With his text guiding me to the cozy corner he had chosen, I stepped inside. Derek's handsome presence took my breath away. He was even more charming in person than his profile suggested. Relieved that he seemed genuine, I felt a swell of happiness at having finally met the man I had been exchanging messages with. Derek, on the other hand, harbored his own doubts, a skepticism kindled by my profile's vague claims. It was natural to question authenticity in this digital age. I couldn't fault him, especially considering the half-truths I had spun to engage him. Feeling a tinge of shyness, I struggled to find my footing in this new, exhilarating phase. Yet Derek's warmth and easy laughter helped ease the tension that hung in the air. Suddenly, a commotion outside caught my attention. A street performer had drawn a crowd with his vibrant juggling act, colorful balls flying through the air, reflecting the daylight. I gestured toward the window, inviting Derek to share in the moment. With the laughter of the cafe patrons and the thrill of the performer's antics, my anxiety began to dissolve, giving way to a newfound sense of freedom. The afternoon stretched before us like an uncharted road, filled with possibilities, as I sensed both the excitement ahead and the dangers lurking in the shadows of my choices. As laughter and conversation wrapped around us, a decision I had made lingered, and I couldn't help but wonder how this adventure would unfold. I completely overlooked the fact that my wedding band was still resting on my finger. Derek caught sight of it and raised an eyebrow, questioning if I was married. Without a second thought, I shook my head and dismissed it as just a fashion accessory. I could sense his eyes narrowing, skepticism washing over his handsome face. Yet, he chose not to pry further. As our conversation flowed, Derek expressed his disdain for women who betray their partners, delivering a fervent monologue about his last heartache. How his ex had shattered his trust through infidelity, and how he had confronted her when the truth emerged. My pulse quickened, an uncomfortable heat creeping up my neck as every word echoed deeper in my mind. He caught the slight tremor in my voice as I forced out a smile, asking if I was all right. Just a bit tired, I lied, masking the tumult of emotions swirling within. He couldn't possibly fathom that I embodied the very type of woman he spoke against. The realization that I was hiding my marriage from him sent chills down my spine, but I nimbly suppressed that panic, determined to keep my secrets safe. Despite my careful planning, Derek's inquisitiveness edged closer to revealing my reality. We eventually finished our meals and stepped out of the vibrant art gallery cafe into the sunlight. The energetic buzz of the city was intoxicating as we explored picturesque streets. Sampling ice cream at his cherished spot, I felt alive, brimming with excitement and a sense of liberation I hadn't tasted in years. The shared laughter and stolen glances propelled us into a hotel room later that day, where revelry turned into passion. In that moment, everything felt justified, and I swirled in the thrill of it all, completely forgetting the complexities that awaited me. Yet, paradoxically, the joy soon tipped to regret as I wrestled with the weight of my actions, the realization that I could never rewind time. Following that afternoon, Derek and I grew inseparably close. Every outing became a treasured memory, filling the emptiness I had felt for so long. I savored the newfound happiness and the adventurous rush, convinced that I could skillfully balance my double life. Meanwhile, Ethan remained blissfully unaware, wrapped tightly in his own world of architectural projects. I cleverly crafted excuses to slip away each weekend, shielding my family from the truth. Whenever my sisters nudged me towards a more conventional path, their words fell on deaf ears. The last time they tried, they recoiled, knowing better than to challenge my resolve again. I explicitly warned them to keep our mother in the dark. She would have intervened before I could enjoy even a moment of elusive freedom. In a moment of impulse, I reached out to Nina, who had previously nudged me toward a dating app called Tinder. Sharing tales of my escapades with Derek, her excitement pierced through the guilt cloaking my heart. Yet, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed a fraction when I unreservedly admitted to concealing my marital status. "You can't keep this from him forever," she urged, her tone a mixture of concern and disbelief. I was unyielding, adamant that honesty would only complicate my otherwise thrilling escape from reality. Nina's disappointment was palpable, but she refrained from pushing me further. And so, I continued my secret rendezvous with Derek, convinced I could keep the truth hidden. But fate, as they say, has a curious sense of timing. It was a seemingly ordinary Saturday. Ethan and I were invited to a friend's wedding, but I feigned illness, ideal for slipping away to meet Derek. He accepted my excuse without question, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Once Ethan was gone, I quickly messaged Derek, suggesting a rendezvous at a stylish hotel nearby. I chose a location close enough to allow for a quick escape should the need arise. The air buzzed with excitement as Derek and I arrived, exchanging flirtatious glances over our drinks, the promise of an unforgettable afternoon hanging thickly between us. Little did I know, the fragile web I had spun was on the verge of unraveling. The thrill of the moment concealed the imminent storm, one that would not only bring my secrets crashing down, but also haunt me in unimaginable ways. Spending solitary moments with Derek was intoxicating. He had an uncanny ability to read my desires while showering me with thoughtful gifts. After a few minutes caught up in this whirlwind, I informed Derek that I needed a brief shower before we ventured out. I left him lounging on the plush, oversized bed, the sheets disheveled from our earlier activities, as I slipped into the sleek bathroom. It was during these few stolen minutes that my secret unraveled. In my haste, I had forgotten my purse, an unlocked phone resting casually on the elegant side table. Derek, ever inquisitive, picked up my phone, curiosity piquing as he scrolled through its contents. There it was, unmistakably saved. Ethan's name lit up the screen like a beacon of betrayal. Derek's brow furrowed in disbelief as he rifled through my text messages, each one revealing snippets of my life with Ethan. It was as if the air shifted around him, his charming demeanor morphed into something darker as vengeance flickered in his eyes. I never anticipated that the very man who professed a disdain for cheaters would turn so vindictive. Derek did the unthinkable. He took my phone, quickly copied Ethan's number, and sent him a message dripping with malice. He revealed that I was being unfaithful to my husband with a stranger from the dating world. To seal his retribution, he provided Ethan the precise location of our rendezvous, detailing the trendy boutique hotel amidst the bustling city's heart. With a wicked smirk, Derek left a note underneath my phone, a taunting warning for Ethan. In a swift motion, he locked me inside the bathroom. Just a moment, I called out, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. Anxiety surged through me, my heart racing as I realized the gravity of the situation. I trembled, soaked in sweat, whispering silent prayers for rescue. An agonizing hour crawled by like an eternity before I finally heard the click of the lock. Expecting it to be Derek, ready to bargain my way back into his good graces, I prepared to unleash my frustration. But as the door swung open, my breath caught in my throat. Standing there was Ethan, his face a mask of hurt and betrayal. I was gobsmacked, utterly at a loss for words. My voice faltered as I tried to articulate my thoughts. The syllables escaped me, swallowed by my panic. Ethan dragged me out into the light of the room, his hands firm as he pinned me against the wall. The air was thick with tension, every breath echoing the heartbreak that hung between us. With a few swift slaps, he expressed his disbelief and disappointment. "How could you?" he demanded, his voice quivering with a mix of anger and pain. Those simple words cut deeper than any slap ever could. I sank to my knees, realization flooding over me like a cold wave. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. I begged him for another chance, tears streaming down my face, but he merely shook his head and turned away, leaving me feeling more isolated than ever. Now, I found myself teetering on the brink of losing everything I held dear. My mind raced with thoughts of how to mend this colossal error. I knew I was at fault, ready to confront the consequences. But deep down, the hope of reconciliation with Ethan clung to me like a lifeline. 2 weeks slipped by without a word from him, the silence deafening. The last encounter had been a crushing rejection, filled with the weight of his words, demanding I sign the divorce papers. I hadn't yet done it, hoping for a glimmer of hope. Derek had cut me off completely, removing me from his life and blocking every means of communication. He had taken my infidelity and turned it into a weapon against me. Ethan had even escalated things by informing my family of the sordid betrayal. Pictures of my mother's disappointment played in my mind, her face twisting in hurt when she heard the news. I hadn't spoken to my family since that day Ethan threw my belongings out, a stark reminder of my shattering mistakes. Just when I thought the storm had calmed, I felt compelled to share an update with my friends. "I've signed the divorce papers and sent them back to Ethan," I confessed, bracing for the storm of emotions that followed. This final decision crushed me. Prior to signing, I had contemplated an impassioned plea for forgiveness, but when I had dared to visit him, I was met with ridicule and dismissal. Ethan had closed the door on our life together, leaving me to confront the shattered fragments of my choices alone. A few days ago, I ventured to the urban loft to plead with him, but the doorman informed me that Ethan was at the office. Naturally, it was a Monday morning and he was scheduled to be there. I took the elevator down to his workplace, my heart racing as I made my way to his office, filled with a whirlwind of emotions. In that moment, clarity evaded me. All I craved was a chance to express my remorse and explore if there was any way to mend our relationship. I had come to terms with my mistake and was ready to accept the consequences. Admitting to Ethan that my infidelity had been a spontaneous choice felt too daunting. Truthfully, I craved the thrill outside our marriage. Yet I underestimated the repercussions, a blunder that would shatter both my marriage and the friendship we once held dear. I had sacrificed our bond for mere moments of indulgence. Honestly, writing about this now makes me want to curl up in a ball of shame. As I stepped into the office, Ethan didn't miss a beat. He grabbed my arm and summoned security to escort me out. His colleagues and clients in the office watched in stunned silence. I could feel their eyes boring into me, and I could only imagine the gossip that would soon spread among the staff and the neighboring offices. My cheeks burned with embarrassment as I was led away, the harsh reality of my actions sinking in. Arriving home that night, I collapsed onto the sofa, tears streaming down my face in an overwhelming wave of regret. In that fragile moment, I resolved to sever the ties that bound us. With shaking hands, I signed the divorce papers and sent them to Ethan before he left work. Now, as I type this, I am officially a divorced woman. Ethan and I are on separate paths, a decision that I believe is for our own good. I hope that in time, he finds the capacity to heal and forgive me. This doesn't mean I wish for reconciliation, but rather a hope for him to move on free of resentment. I've made peace with myself and am determined to continue on my journey. So, my friends, this marks the conclusion of my narrative. As I sit here, a thought strikes me. A small event that unfolded shortly after my departure from the office. That very same day, while I drowned in my sorrows, Lila stumbled upon an art installation at a nearby gallery. The vibrant colors and the emotional depth of the pieces seemed to resonate with her turmoil. She spent hours admiring them, feeling her own pain reflected back at her. Each stroke of paint felt like a cathartic release, as if the artist had poured their own heartaches into the canvases. In that moment of solitude among the art, Lila understood that while her current predicament was a painful chapter in her life, it was also an opportunity for rebirth, a chance to redefine herself and emerge stronger. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heartbreak Confessions. Your feedback is invaluable, so share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more AITA stories. Until next time.